we can think of taking care of ourselves, pouring into our own cup, getting our own needs met as something we are literally gifting to our children. We are making their lives, not just their lives right now as somebody being parented by us, but their entire lives, because they now have this new norm. We're making that better. Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it. Hello. Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. Before we dive in today, I want to let you know that there are massive things coming to this podcast. And if you are not already subscribed to the podcast, if you are not already following along on Instagram at Worthy Mother Podcast, make sure that you do both of those things because there are going to be some pretty big announcements coming. You'll also hear about them here on the podcast. But the next couple months are going to be full of a lot of exciting announcements and changes for the podcast. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following along on Instagram. Today, we are going to be talking about one of my very favorite topics, self-care. Self-care specifically as a mom, making sure that we are taking care of ourselves, making sure that we are prioritizing getting our own needs met. Now, I know this topic is a bit controversial, and I can kind of explain why that is. Oftentimes, self-care is presented to moms as like this fix-all. If only you took care of yourself, you wouldn't be burned out. If only you took care of yourself, motherhood wouldn't feel so hard. And the reality is that that's not true. There are so many systemic factors to why motherhood is hard. Also, just the role of being a mom and raising children, like in itself, it's challenging. Like there's not really any way around that. And so I find that we can kind of swing on this pendulum of either feeling like talking about self-care is dismissive and doesn't really capture the issues that moms actually face. And then the other side of that is that we're just presenting self-care as this fix-all. And I find myself somewhere in the middle where, yes, I believe it is incredibly important to address the context that we're mothering in and also to be realistic about the fact that we can't necessarily meet all our needs through self-care. Like that's just not realistic. It's not the answer to all the problems that we face as moms and as people just getting by in this society. And yet I also believe that it's really important that we talk about why it is important to do our best to take care of ourselves and why it's important to not feel like spending time on yourself, spending energy on yourself is selfish, because it's not. So self-care is a huge part of what we talk about on this podcast. And I always make sure in conversations about self-care to highlight the fact that like you deserve self-care. You deserve to take care of yourself, to have your needs met as a human being, regardless of the fact that you're a mom, regardless of the benefits that taking care of yourself has on your kids. Like you deserve to be cared for because you are a human. You are worthy of care and having your needs met. But today I want to shift things a little bit, keeping that in mind that you are worthy of care regardless of the impacts on your kids. Today I do want to focus though on the impacts on our kids, because I think it can be helpful sometimes when we're caught in that feeling of like taking care of myself, spending time on myself is selfish. I don't have time for this. There's other things that are more important. I can't be so focused on like what I need when my kids need things. When we get in that space, sometimes it can be helpful to zoom out and look at like, okay, well, what is the benefit on my children? If I'm feeling that I'm being selfish, or if I'm facing mom guilt anytime I try and do something for myself, if I can identify the benefit that that act of self-care, that essence of taking care of myself has on my child, then maybe I can approach the taking care of myself with a bit more compassion and a bit more oomph, right? Like we're feeling like it's something that I should prioritize. And I don't have to feel guilty about doing that because it does benefit my kids. And in having this conversation, it is important that we do define what self-care means. I have a very loose definition of self-care, and I don't think it needs to be any more specific, but really, self-care is the meeting of your own needs. It's doing things and creating an environment in which your needs are being met through your own actions, your own decisions, your own efforts, and time spent on yourself. So self-care can be the actual actions you're taking. It can be the going for the run. It can be the making the healthy dinner. It can be the watching Netflix before bed when you had a really long day and you just need to zone out and mind them, right? It can be the things that you're doing, but it can also be more of like the mindset that you're approaching your life with. When we give ourselves grace in a hard situation, that can be a form of self-care. When we prioritize time in our schedule to be with friends and we make it the norm to go to that exercise class, to do something for you, even when there's something you could be doing for your kids in that moment, this kind of like structuring of our life around knowing that our own needs are important and having the space as much as possible, because again, we've identified that that's not always possible to have the space to get all your needs met. But if we're like creating that environment to make sure that we have a better chance of getting our needs met, that to me is what true self-care is. It's the actions, but it's also creating the environment. I'm not into the whole like bubble baths are not self-care thing, because if a bubble bath is self-care to you, if that's what you need in the moment, you need a place to relax and like just be and exist in warm water with nice smells, like that's self-care. If going to the doctor is a way that you are getting your needs met, that is self-care. None of these things on their own are enough to get all of our needs met, right? So it's really like looking at the big picture of what self-care is. So again, the meeting of your needs as an individual is important for you as an individual, regardless of any impact on your kids. That is enough. The fact that you benefit from you taking care of your own needs, like, great. Self-care is something we should prioritize. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't think we have to like go further into saying, oh, your kids benefit, and so that's why you should do it. But again, I acknowledge that there are benefits to our kids, and sometimes that's what we have to tap into to be able to release the guilt that sometimes comes with the prioritizing of ourselves. And so that's what I want to get into right now. How does taking care of ourselves, how does meeting our own needs benefit our kids? And this happens in more than one way. So I want to break down for you the kind of 3 ways that I see taking care of ourselves as benefiting our own children. The first thing, and probably the most obvious, probably if I were to ask you like what benefit you think self-care and taking care of your own needs has on your kids, what you would say that would be, that's probably your answer. It is the fact that when we are not getting our needs met, when we are running on empty, when we are not doing well because we're just completely burned out and lacking in any sort of care, we don't show up for our kids the same way that we do when our needs are being met, when we're feeling fulfilled, when we're nourished, when we have enough sleep, when we are feeling like we are a complete whole human being who can experience joy in the different areas of our lives. When we are able to approach motherhood from that place of like wholeness, of health, of feeling rested and rejuvenated, we are better moms. Like, I don't know that there's really another way to say it. We can be more patient when our fuse is not this long, right? Like, when we have the capacity because our needs are being met, we can meet motherhood and the challenges that come along with that and the needs that our children have with just a lot more space and grace, and probably do a lot more pausing and reflecting before responding so we're not snapping at our kids. We can really show up more in the way that we want to show up to motherhood when our needs are being met. The saying that comes up for me in this is that you can't pour from an empty cup. And I know that that is so overstated. It is such a cliche. But there's a reason we say it, right? There's a reason we say you can't pour from an empty cup. Because if you are running on empty, if you are not being taken care of, if you are facing the mental health impacts of burnout and you are, again, sleep deprived, all these things, you can't give what you don't have. You can't pour into your children in a way that benefits them, right? We're going to just be stuck in this cycle of reacting to things in a way that we don't want to be reacting, and then feeling guilty and feeling like those needs aren't being met and not pouring into ourselves because of the guilt. All this, right? It is in the filling of your cup. It is in the acts of self-care to get your needs met that you can begin to show up for your kids in the way that you want to show up for them, the way that you deem to be the most beneficial for them. There is so much out there about parenting styles and the ways we respond to our kids. And so often we have this idealized way that we would like to show up for them that we have decided would be the most beneficial to them in the long run, in the raising of our children. But if we are running on empty, if our cup is empty, we can't necessarily tap into ourselves and implement those parenting strategies because there's nothing left to give. So really the focus then can become filling your own cup, doing the things that fill your cup, whether that is getting enough sleep, prioritizing sleep, right? Whether that is making sure that you are eating 3 meals a day, whether that is spending time with friends, whether that is literally getting time to yourself every single day because that is the need you have and that's the need you want, right? These things can be the tiny basic needs, but they can also be the bigger needs that we have, following our dreams, like having purpose in life beyond our roles as mothers. Like those are legitimate needs we have. And if we can learn how to fill up our cup by tapping into whatever the individualized needs are that we have as an individual, we can fill that cup and we can have more to pour into our kids and they can have a better experience being mothered by us, right? Like that's important. And it's worth pointing out as a major benefit of taking care of ourselves in motherhood. But the benefits to our kids do not stop with just how we then show up to motherhood when our needs are being met. There's also the reality that when our kids are witnessing us taking care of ourselves, when they're witnessing us taking time away from the role of mom to put energy and effort into ourselves, they benefit from that on a totally just different level. In a world that is so quick to have us sacrifice our own needs for everything else, and I say us partially as moms, like yes, moms, there's a huge kind of push to sacrifice your own needs for your children. But that really goes beyond even just motherhood. It goes, if you look at the workplace, so often people are asked to abandon their own needs for the benefit of a corporation, right? Like these kind of patterns of self-sacrifice for some other thing outside of you are really, really, really ingrained in our capitalistic, individualistic society. And our children witnessing us actually prioritizing the time for ourselves, prioritizing getting our needs met, again, beyond just those basic needs, but getting our needs met that have to do with connection, that have to do with identity, that have to do with pursuing goals and dreams and ambitions. When they see us prioritizing those things, it helps them grow into adults who are more likely able to see themselves as worthy of their own care, of their own efforts, of their own time, and less likely to fall into patterns, whether that is in motherhood, parenthood, the workforce, and career, that keep them feeling burned out because they're consistently sacrificing their own needs for something outside of them. It is really, truly a beautiful gift we give our kids when we model for them prioritizing our own needs, when we model for them taking time for ourselves. And this has like generational impacts. It's not just the generation within our family, but when we as moms, like as a collective, start to do this more and more, we are quite literally changing the world for the next generation who may not be willing to put up with the functioning of our society, right? Like there could be actual cultural change because of what we do to take care of ourselves in the home that our kids witness. I think that's pretty cool. I think that is a really interesting way to look at the conversation around self-care as a mom, because it really does like stop you in your tracks a little bit when you're thinking like self-care is selfish. It's like, no, actually, like self-care is making the entire world a better place for everyone. Like, damn, that's cool. And then the last point I want to make about how self-care does benefit our kids is that we are teaching them through example self-care skills. Now, like I said, self-care can be the bubble baths, it can be the getting the nails done, it can be whatever the thing is that is getting your needs met, whatever need you have. If it's feeling good in your skin, like cool, that is getting a need met. That counts as self-care in my book. But self-care is so much more than that. Self-care is the emotional regulation. It's the boundary setting. It's the asking for help, going to therapy, building connections with friends, following your dreams and believing in yourself. It is all of these different pieces. And our kids are witnessing that. They are learning the skills needed to be able to do that in their own life. So sometimes that's like very legitimate skills of like a breathing technique that we might be doing. When I get in a place where like I'm losing my shit, which happens, I will often like pull out a breathing exercise to do, and it doesn't always work amazingly, right? Like it's not fixing the context. I can't breathe my way out of a stressful situation. But sometimes it really can help me get to a place of regulation, a place of balance where I'm able to respond in a way that is more aligned with what I would like to do. And my kids see that. They are seeing me using a skill to help myself in a moment to get myself to a place where I can respond more effectively. They see that and they learn from that. They learn that particular skill, whether they're doing it with me or not, right? Something I know my kids see me do a lot, and I actually haven't seen them do this yet. They're still pretty young, but I will like take a break. I will take a step away from something when it gets to be too much. And my kids see me doing that, and they're witnessing that. That is something that is normalized for them. If things get to be too much, I might take a moment in a different room. And so one day they may be in a situation, one of them may be in a situation where it's too much, and they know that instead of having an outburst, right, they can take a moment and step into a different room. It won't help every time, but it's a tool that they have now because it is normalized for them. I also just think about how like I go to therapy and my kids know I go to therapy. They don't really know what therapy is. My son actually asked me the other day, what is therapy? And I was trying to explain it to him. He's seen his school counselor before, and I was explaining that it's kind of like a school counselor, that the school counselor is like a therapist, and they're somebody who just helps you if you're having a hard time with something, or they help you learn different tools for different things. And we were also talking about how one of my good friends is becoming a therapist, and he's very curious about what that all means. And it is so cool to me that my 7-year-old, he is moving through the world knowing what therapy is. That is totally normal for him. He has multiple people in his life who go to therapy. He knows therapists. It's so not stigmatized. It's just kind of a normal part of my life. And it's something that, while he doesn't really understand what it is also normal in his life. That wasn't the reality for us growing up, at least for me. And I grew up in a pretty like open to mental health conversations home. We didn't really talk about mental health a lot growing up, but like it also wasn't like deeply stigmatized. There wasn't like shit talking on therapists, which I know people in my life who, you know, they'd be like, oh, they have a shrink, things like that. Like that very much was a part of a lot of people's lives growing up. That wasn't something that like occurred in my home, but it also was not something we talked about. It was not normalized at all. And how cool to be like teaching my kids something different. We're breaking that cycle. And for my kids, going to therapy, being able to ask for help when you're struggling is just normal. Like that, it's just, there's no shame behind it. It's just normal. Like there'd be no reason for there to be shame behind it. People go to therapy. Cool. End of story. Like it's a way to get needs met. There are so many things in life like that where just the act of us doing something to take care of ourselves, hiring a babysitter so you can go out with some friends, right? Like that is teaching our kids that they can make decisions to prioritize things that are important to them. All of these little pieces are teaching them. This is all becoming a part of who they are, becoming a part of what is normal to them. And they will grow up taking on those norms and being able to better support their needs through the tools, through the ability and normalization of asking for help, and through the just like environment that they will naturally create because it's normal for them to be living in an environment that prioritizes our own selves as individuals. I completely acknowledge that sometimes the shift to taking more time for ourselves, to taking more time and putting more energy into the meeting of our needs can come with guilt. Mom guilt is real. The feelings of guilt and shame that come along with doing something that feels like it's prioritizing us over our kids is something that happens to most of us. And so the reframe here is that self-care is not indulgence. Self-care is not selfish. There are things that we can do to take care of ourselves that definitely are indulgent, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the kind of overarching meeting of our needs, doing the things for you that fill your cup, that is not selfish. And I'm not just talking basic needs. I'm talking about meeting your entire scope of needs as a human being, putting an effort to do that. That is not selfish. Instead, self-care can be thought of as the preparation that you need to be the mom to your kids that you want to be, and the model to your kids for how they can be in their life. When we can think of self-care as a gift for our children, when we can think of taking care of ourselves, pouring into our own cup, getting our own needs met, as something we are literally gifting to our children. We are making their lives, not just their lives right now as somebody being parented by us, but their entire lives, because they now have this new norm. We're making that better. It's like it takes away so much of the guilt and shame. It allows us to approach self-care with so much more compassion and so much more freedom to feel good in the act of taking care of ourselves. I encourage you this week to take a look at the way that you care for yourself and to make a small change. If you are somebody who is not getting the basic needs met in your life on a regular basis, like you are running on empty, you are having a hard time making sure you get 3 meals a day, you're not sleeping enough, whatever it is, I want you to look at one of those areas and think about how you could make a small change to care for yourself better in that one area. And if you feel pretty good in those areas, but maybe you're feeling tension somewhere else in life, maybe there's some needs being unmet when it comes to your social life or your partnership, your relationship, or the ambitious side of you that has been kind of, shoved down since you became a mom. I encourage you to take a look there. At least start to identify what the need is that you have, so you can start to kind of look at opportunities in life to start getting that need met. When it comes to taking care of ourselves, consistency matters more than like the actions that we're taking. Making sure that we have that mindset in place to know that we are worthy of our own care and also that it benefits our kids. Having that consistently underline the way that we go through our days is huge, and it does make a difference. So whenever you get pulled into that thought process of self-care is selfish, I can't take time for myself right now because that makes me not a good mom, I want you to remember these 3 things. Meeting your needs helps you show up and meet your kids' needs. It helps you show up as the mom that you want to be. You are also modeling healthy behavior and teaching your kids incredibly important life skills and mindsets. Taking care of yourself is literally one of the most powerful ways that you can take care of your kids. If you've struggled to get your needs met in motherhood, I hope this episode can help you see why it can be such a priority and what the benefits can be, not just to you, but to your kids. You are worthy of your own love and care, but your kids benefit as well. We are going to leave it at that this week. As I said, if you are not already subscribed to the podcast, if you are not already following along on Instagram at Worthy Mother Podcast, make sure you're doing that. Again, there are huge things coming. Don't want you to miss it. I'm very excited. We'll be back again next week for another guest episode. With that, you are worthy, mama.